because they no longer believe that the process works. And they'll even point to things like 2022, SBF, right? It was pay to play. It was just, lining politicians with money. And like the long game you're playing sounds nice, Brian, but like it doesn't work. It's not effective. These politicians are corrupt. You seem more optimistic than that. Can you give us the case for why we should be optimistic?
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand why people are cynical about it. It raised a whole bunch of questions about the process and does it work? And if not, where? There's a really great 2x2 graph that I love that shows up sometimes. I think it's from Edelman, but it shows sort of trustworthiness and competence, I believe. And it sort of compares different, government and NGOs and for-profit businesses. And for a while, there was sort of nobody in the top right quadrant who was both trusted and competent. And slowly, people have started to view, and government's not there, by the way, it's viewed as not trusted and incompetent, if you believe this survey. Business is sort of increasingly moving into that top right quadrant, if you look at their recent data. And I think business basically, some for-profit businesses have a role to play as champions in this space of helping organize individuals, helping craft policy. We don't ever want to take credit or like inject ourselves into the democratic process, because I think there's a line you can cross there as just one private company. But if you're talking about the individual citizens, the voters, I'm talking about there's 50 million people who've used crypto in the United States. I'm talking about the people here. And in a democracy, the government works for the people, not the other way around, right? So democracy it's slow. I think that that's probably the biggest frustration people have is they're saying, this is so obvious. Like all my friends are using this. I'm on Twitter every day. Like, how do people in government not get this? And then in DC, they're sitting in a different world. There's an age generation gap. There's the type of media that they're consuming gap. Now, but the good thing about America has many flaws, and it's slow and bureaucratic in many ways, and it can be wrong for a long time. But what eventually ends up happening is that sentiments shift in the U.S. A new generation of people emerges. They get people who run for office. The electorate, the voters, change. And basically, America has this kind of self-healing system. Imagine how bad it would be if we got someone anti-crypto and they were dictator for life or something. Like, at least we can just wait 4 years or 8 years in the worst case or something and get a new crop of people in, right? So that's very slow by technology standards. But in terms of governments in the rest of the world, it's not bad. And so, crypto is going to outlast any administration, any official who, has the wrong idea or whatever. And so we can go through good periods and bad periods, as long as we keep building. And then the people who are engaged enough on the civic side who want to do it, that's great. The people who just want to build, that's also great. We need both. I think we'll get there eventually.
I want to circle back around to the original question that Ryan asked, which was, how did Sam Bankman-Fried get so involved with politics? And Brian, your answer was that he was really playing the game. He was playing the game of politics, and he, just by the nature of what happens when you intentionally play that game for playing the game's sake, like that's what happens. Like you find your way in. And I really appreciate your answer of like you said that you're just a naturally born engineer. You see a problem and you state an answer. And so what I'm saying is, like, as someone who's known you, and we've had like an episode and a half of a podcast now, and I've also thoroughly enjoyed the Coinbase documentary as well. First principles type guy, a problem mindset type guy. And it sounds to me like you're thinking about ways at Coinbase to funnel those people who care about crypto and crypto values into being able to connect to the politicians that will resonate with those values. And as my co-host likes to say, if you adopt crypto protocols, you adopt crypto values. And it sounds to me like you're addressing the same sort of like engineer mindset that you did to build Coinbase to also allow for people, younger generations, because I'm assuming the average Coinbase user is a younger generation customer, to connect to the politicians in question that resonate with our values. And is that my intuition is correct here? Is like perhaps Coinbase is taking an engineering type approach to solving our regulatory ires?
I think that's a fair way of putting it. Yeah, I hadn't actually thought about it that way myself, but you're right. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what is the best way we can get the right outcome. And for me, the right outcome is more economic freedom. How do we make sure that this technology, 1 billion people or more, can benefit from it? And if there's a lot of misunderstanding and mischaracterization about it out there, how do we correct that? And I think, there's many ways to accomplish that, but one of them is just, we have a ton of people in the US and in every country who are now using this. They can see the benefit of it and they're voters. And so let's have them get organized and make sure that politicians understand that if they want the crypto vote, they're going to have to understand how to create better policies here.
Right. And you don't just have the people, but you also have the money by definition. And so like connect all the pieces of the puzzle here. There's representatives that are good or bad as it relates to crypto. There's perhaps interested voters that are also Coinbase users. And by nature that they're Coinbase users, they also have money on Coinbase. Like, what does this, again, taking this from an engineering mindset, what does this look like when you put all these
like
pieces
there's a
together?
feature in an app somewhere, right? In
Right.
Coinbase
Yes.
where we can look at the politicians. And is there like a,
Send money.
is there a send money or
Yeah.
like, I don't know, send likes or something, show support?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a product grid in the top left of the Coinbase app, and you can go in there and look up the policy data. But yeah, I mean, by the way, there's a bunch of election rules around this too. We have to be careful about exactly like, requiring or requesting somebody donate specifically to this candidate right in the app. And like, we have lots of lawyers looking into this, but certainly just making information available to people and things like that is a good first step. And that's why we helped create like this Crypto 435. The name, by the way, is referencing 435 congressional districts in the US. So that's a great place through a third party people can start. And I think, yeah, like hopefully more and more apps in crypto, people's Twitter accounts, like podcasts like this one, we can get the word out. And then if we organize the crypto lobby or the crypto user base, I think that it'll be a very powerful feature over time.
So really quick, so we get an action item here. Coinbase's 435 program. What can people go do right now in this, and how can they help get exercise their voice here if they live in the US?
Yeah. So I mean, look, it's very early days today, but first thing you do is just Google it, Crypto 435, and go sign up, and then you'll basically start to get more information over time. So it'll be about key races that are coming up. You might see A through F type scores of different candidates kind of based on their public statements of what they've said about crypto in the past, and then, there hopefully should be opportunities for people who want to donate to those candidates. If they want to show up to town halls, if they want to call their congressman, when I'm in DC, I actually ask people about this sometimes. Like I'll be in these talking with the staffers before a meeting with a senator or something like that. I'm like, do you guys actually, tally up like these phone calls that come in? I'm just curious. And they're like, yeah, actually we do. It's like a big part of their job, and they sort of send aggregate statistics to the senator oftentimes, and they'll say, all right, this week we got 30% of calls were about X. That seems to be like the top issue on people's minds. And like, okay, what are we doing about that? And it's not like it's going to change their mind overnight or something like that, but it's definitely a way for them to get on people's radar. So all these things, yeah, donating, calling, tweeting, showing up in person, and then ultimately like the voting is going to be what moves the needle in a democracy.
Man, I just love the fact that the whole point of crypto, the theme of what we talk about here is like coordination technology. This is good coordination technology. And that's really all I'm seeing here is like we have lucky enough to be have a cohort of, I'm guessing that the crypto person is the most likely to be a single issue voter. They're going to vote about crypto probably at a higher percentage than most other people, at least for others like single issue voter issues. And they have money, right? And so like the whole coordination behind this thing, you really just got to give a hand to the fact that like we're built on coordination tools and we know how to coordinate when the time comes. So tip of the hat for building the system.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good chance to try out our tools here, right? I mean, we should probably do this with a DAO or something like that. That would be great. I could imagine people like, getting sort of like NFT type badges around being a crypto advocate, and like, what does that mean? You could imagine why aren't we raising more money, or like kind of giving out NFTs for certain politicians to raise. There's a lot of stuff we could do that's more crypto native in this space.
Can I ask you, Brian, just to get more granular on this before we leave kind of regulatory in the US, which is like impact on product, like so specifically. What types of things would you love to do at Coinbase that you feel like you can't do in the US right now? I know you've written editorials, you've made a lot of comments on Twitter about like, hey, regulators, lawmakers, just so you know, you are pushing this outside of the borders and the geography of the United States with these actions. So like granularly, I think a lot of people don't understand. I don't understand. I don't know if you understand yet because it's maybe unclear, but like ETH staking, all right, Coinbase still provides this, but or staking in general. But Kraken, it was just like turned off. Is staking like allowed for companies in the US? Do you have a perspective on that? We could also talk about Earn. We could talk about stable coins, but let's start with staking.
Yeah. So, Kraken's program that they called staking, in my view, is kind of more like maybe a yield product or something like that. But Coinbase's staking program is not a security. So we feel comfortable defending that in any way that's needed. And we're trying to just work proactively with regulators to help them kind of understand exactly what the product is if they want any information that's available on that. So staking is one that's sort of been looked at recently. I think another one is just around derivatives, right? Actually, like a huge percentage of crypto trading is now derivatives. And we've been working with the CFTC here to sort of get our derivatives platform going. That would be a major thing to be built here in the United States, just in terms of like healthy market structure.
So far you've been unable to launch a derivatives market on Coinbase, even though you've wanted to for a while. Is that the case?
In the US, yeah.
In the US.
Yeah. And I mean, also, by the way, I think there should be a robust, healthy crypto securities market in the US, right? I mean, the SEC and the CFTC have this kind of debate over what is what, and that's great. We need probably Congress to pass new legislation to sort of help clarify that. I mean, it's not great. It's actually been really harmful to the country, but we probably need Congress to come along and pass new legislation on that. But I would love to see if the minute that we do get clarity about, okay, if somebody's legitimately raising money for their company or to build something like an apartment complex or whatever, they should be able to do that with crypto. They should be able to go register that as a security in the US and then have securities trading platforms and broker dealers and all these kind of things that help that happen. And so I'd like that to happen as well. That's something that Coinbase has been working on for a while, and hopefully we can eventually get that going in the US. But these are examples. I think the most harmful thing that's happened is just, it's not really, those are all examples of specific things which we need clarity that how they can exist with a clear rule book. But the part that's probably been the most harmful is the negative rhetoric, right? In most industries, what happens is you ask the regulator, what are the rules? And then everybody just follows the rules, right? And if the rules change, give us the new rules. We'll follow those rules. Like, I think in most CEOs in crypto that I talk to, were perfectly willing to do that. Like, just give us the rule book. So since there is no rule book, people have been sort of, doing the best they can in the absence of that clarity. But what's really worse is that we're having this environment of regulation by enforcement, which means not only is there no clear rules and there's no engagement with the industry on rule making, but just once in a while, a random, a bunch of subpoenas or enforcement action will show up somewhere at a company. And what this is causing is essentially an environment of fear. And a lot of crypto entrepreneurs are now saying, okay, well, I guess I need to build my company offshore in another country, because outside the US, because the environment is too dangerous in the US. They basically can't afford the legal bills. And that's pretty dangerous. I mean, I think, and the US is really an outlier here, by the way. If you look at the UK, Singapore, Hong Kong, all the other financial hubs of the world are basically saying, they're like, we're open for business. We think crypto is exciting. We think it's the future. We want the future of this industry to be built here. Rishi Sunak, the PM of the UK, is pretty pro crypto. Hong Kong just passed legislation. Singapore, I went and met with all the authorities there. They're like, we want to be a Web3 hub. Europe just passed comprehensive crypto legislation. So and honestly, they're not even thinking that much about FTX in those regions. It's actually surprising. Like this whole thing with FTX is a little bit of like a scar, because he was so active in DC and everyone there is kind of afraid of being associated with it. But outside the US, the rest of the world is saying, we want to move forward with this. And so the US is actually risks kind of falling behind here.
Well, yeah. And so what you're describing is what other people have called a chilling effect. And that seems to definitely be the case, that this uncertainty, this lack of clarity has a chilling effect. Why do you think this is happening in the US specifically? So are regulators just overstepping their powers here? Like, do you have any commentary on the SEC? Gary Gensler has seemed like he's been on a warpath against crypto. And we have, when we talk to folks in the EU, they say, hey, like we don't have the same sort of securities issues that the US has and these jurisdictional things. What about it in the US is causing this chilling effect and this backlash? If we can't blame it on FTX, what is the cause?
Yeah. Well, look, I don't want to comment on anything specific individuals here. But I will say, for instance, in the UK, they have one financial regulator that regulates both commodities and security, the financial. So they don't have this turf battle that's happening in the US between the CFTC and the SEC, right? I don't know. I'll kind of leave people to draw their own conclusions from that. But the American system has many benefits, but in this case, it has some drawbacks too, where it kind of looks. Most of the people who I interact with there are actually quite reasonable on both the left and the right, I would say. And actually, I'd say there's a general point of view, which is we want this industry to be built in America. We just think it needs to come in within the regulatory perimeter and have appropriate consumer protections. I'd say that is probably 80% of Congress, even just people generally who I meet in the government, even outside of the Congress. That's like the mainstream view, I would say. So it's a relatively fringe element that says, hey, we want to try to crack down on this and like it's all bad. But what we haven't gotten is, Congress to take action and pass new legislation, sort of what happened in the EU with MiCA. We haven't had that happen yet. And I think there's three different groups I'm aware of that are drafting different bills, and those may or may not come to fruition. The thing that's probably holding it back a little bit right now is everyone is just afraid of it being associated with FTX. So they're kind of like, I'm just not going to talk about crypto for 6 months. And it's a little bit of a lack of courage, to be honest, because, I was hoping that this moment with the FTX collapse was going to be a catalyst to actually say, okay, now's the moment to clean this up. Let's bring it within the regulatory perimeter. So maybe it won't happen in the next 3-4 months, but I think in the next year or two, there's a good chance we get some comprehensive legislation passed.
How about stablecoins? Are stablecoins under threat? So there's been some action recently against BUSD, and folks have probably listening have been following that casually, but not maybe very closely. But is there worry about something like USDC coming under some pressure or fire? Have we been able to paint the picture of all of the wins that the U.S. monetary policy can have through exporting the dollar on crypto rails, right? I was thinking about this recently. We had Richard Turin on the podcast, I don't know, summer. Like China is way farther ahead than the US in terms of its central bank currency, right? CDBC. And the US is like nowhere. We're still like, the US is still like, we're researching it. And here we have entrepreneurs who have basically been like, hey, we did this thing called crypto. It's decentralized. It's like open. It's the internet. It seems to align with US values. And by the way, our entrepreneurs have come up with, something that can be regulated on chain called a stable coin, like a USDC. This seems like a win. Let's propagate this to the rest of the world. Doesn't America want that, to the dollar to remain king and not to be leapfrogged by a competitor, another country's currency? Have we been able to paint that picture, or is the US actually coming and attacking our stablecoins too?
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right on the argument. I mean, the US should be, if they're not going to go out and build this themselves, which would probably be the first choice, I think that at a minimum, they should be embracing private industry that's building this in a trusted way. And it's actually almost, I don't think it's going to, it's funny. The biggest thing that they're concerned about is that there'll be some massive withdrawal from the banks of stablecoins, and that'll create liquidity issues in the traditional financial system. But I think that sort of contagion can be pretty well mitigated with just reasonable risk controls. And the crypto economy is so much smaller than the traditional economy at this point. Like it's not actually a threat. A lot of the people there are kind of very scarred by 2008, and they went through that financial crisis. So they're thinking about that from that point of view. The thing that they're not quite worried about enough yet, I don't think, is that over the next 10 years, 20 years, is the dollar still going to be the global reserve currency if we don't have digitization of our economy? And so they should be celebrating these things like USD Coin and others that are, enabling the dollar to participate in this global digital economy. I think you're absolutely right that China is in a place where they are continually pushing their central bank digital currency into more and more aspects of the global economy. And this falls into, their interaction with Russia and Belt and Road type initiatives. And, I think we saw an article relatively recently that Saudi was going to start to accept yuan payments for oil. And so China very much has this ambition to plug themselves in as the more of a global reserve currency, because that comes with incredible privileges. And so in a way, USD coin should be the best thing ever that from a national security, foreign policy type thing in the United States. And I don't think people there quite realize how important it is. But anyway, I'm bullish on this. I think strictly by the letter of the law, USD coin is not a security. I don't think it'll have an issue there. And so, look, we have to follow rule of law. So does everybody else in the US. And so people may have varying positions on it, but strictly by letter of the law, I think USD coin's in a good place.
Uniswap is the largest on-chain marketplace for self-custody digital assets. Uniswap is, of course, a decentralized exchange, but you know this because you've been listening to Bankless. But did you know that the Uniswap web app has a shiny new fiat on-ramp? Now you can go directly from fiat in your bank to tokens in DeFi inside of Uniswap. Not only that, but Polygon, Arbitrum, and Optimism Layer 2s are supported right out of the gate. But that's just DeFi. Uniswap is also an NFT aggregator, letting you find more listings for the best prices across the NFT world. With Uniswap, you can sweep floors on multiple NFTs, and Uniswap's universal router will optimize your gas fees for you. Uniswap is making it as easy as possible to go from bank account to bankless assets across Ethereum, and we couldn't be more thankful for having them as a sponsor. So go to app.uniswap.org today to buy, sell, or swap tokens and NFTs. Hey Bankless Nation, if you're listening to this, it's because you're on the free Bankless RSS feed. Did you know that there's an ad-free version of Bankless that comes with the Bankless Premium subscription? No ads, just straight to the content. But that's just one of many things that a premium subscription gets you. There's also the Token Report, a monthly bullish, bearish, neutral report on the hottest tokens of the month. And the regular updates from the Token Report go into the Token Bible, your first stop shop for every token worth investigating in crypto. Bankless Premium also gets you a 30% discount to the permissionless conference, which means it basically just pays for itself. There's also the Airdrop guide to make sure you don't miss a drop in 2023, but really, the best part about Bankless Premium is hanging out with me, Ryan, and the rest of the Bankless team in the Inner Circle Discord, only for premium members. Want the alpha? Check out Ben the Analyst's Degen Pit, where you can ask him questions about the Token Report. Got a question? I've got my own Q&A room for any questions that you might have. At Bankless, we have huge things planned for 2023, including a new website with login with your Ethereum address capabilities, and we're super excited to ship what we are calling Bankless 2.0 soon TM. So if you want extra help exploring the frontier, subscribe to Bankless Premium. It's under 50 cents a day and provides a wealth of knowledge and support on your journey west. I'll see you in the Discord. The Phantom wallet is coming to Ethereum. The #1 wallet on Solana is bringing its millions of users and beloved UX to Ethereum and Polygon. If you haven't used Phantom before, you've been missing out. Phantom was one of the first wallets to pioneer Solana staking inside the wallet, and will be offering similar staking features for Ethereum and Polygon. But that's just staking. Phantom is also the best home for your NFTs. Phantom has a complete set of features to optimize your NFT experience. Pin your favorites, hide your uglies, burn the spam, and also manage your NFT sale listings from inside the wallet. Phantom is of course a multi-chain wallet, but it makes chain management easy, displaying your transactions in a human-readable format with automatic warnings for malicious transactions or phishing websites. Phantom has already saved over 20,000 users from getting scammed or hacked. So get on the Phantom waitlist and be one of the first to access the multi-chain beta. There's a link in the show notes, or you can go to phantom.app/waitlist to get access in late February.
So despite all of the regulatory overhang, all the regulatory backlash, just the adverse regulatory climate, Coinbase decides to launch an entirely new blockchain. And so this is
a layer two, yeah.
Excuse me, yeah, a layer 2 chain, yeah. And this is, I think, where we want to turn this conversation next. And I really just think one unappreciated aspect that I've been talking to a lot of people at ETH Denver. I just came back from ETH Denver. That's left half of my voice there. That's probably why I sound a little different. Is the conversation was that it was a big vote of confidence from Coinbase to the rest of the industry, saying, in light of everything that's happened, in light of one of the worst years ever, in light of Operation Choke Point and what Ryan and I have been saying is Gary the Tyrant, in light of all of that, we're just going to lick our wounds, move forward, and do something really, really cool.